Kelly Sews and Blank Slate Patterns, and today we're going to talk about how to measure women. Now, you may have read a bunch of diagrams about how to measure, and you may have seen other tutorials about how to measure, but I still find many women are measuring themselves wrong. So I wanted to go ahead and create a video to make sure you're doing this the right way, and also to show you how to take a couple of additional measurements that you might need if you're going to be drafting a bodice pattern for yourself. So I'm going to show you some measurements on me, and I will also be using the dress form here to show you measurements. Now, in addition to your measuring tape and something to write down these measurements on, which, by the way, I've got a link right up here, and there is a free printable that you can download, and that link's also in the description of this video. There's a free printable that you can download, and you can write down all these measurements, and it will have them listed out for you. So there's that, but you're also going to need a measuring tape, and I like this retractable one because it's got the button and I can wind it back up easily. A piece of yarn or string is really useful when we get into some of the length measurements, as is transparent tape. I'm going to use that to show you how to do an arm measurement on yourself. And then one other thing, particularly, again, if you're drafting a bodice for yourself, is a flat ruler is really helpful for this. Now you might wonder, how are we going to use a flat ruler to help measure our not flat bodies? But I'll show you, and you will want to use it. If you don't have a flat ruler, you could also use something like a lightweight book with straight edges or something like that. But it's the straight edge and the thin flat parts that you want to use. All right, let's get started. We're going to start with the high bust measurement. Now, this measurement is important for pattern making because this determines whether or not you're going to have to do a full bust or a small bust adjustment when you are sewing up a pattern. Basically, full bust and small bust adjustments are done when there is a lot or not as much difference between your high bust and your bust measurements as the pattern is drafted for. Now, you may have heard that most patterns are drafted for about a B cup. And that is true of a lot of the Big Four patterns, although some of the independent patterns are drafted for different cup sizes. And then sometimes patterns are drafted with a different base cup size. Like, I always draft mine between a C and a D because I'm a little fuller than a B cup, and I don't like to have to do all those full bust adjustments for myself. So when you've got a pattern drafted for a B cup, which this standard dress form would be something that would be drafted on, you're going to find that the difference between the upper bust and the high bust measurement is 1 to 2 inches. When you're drafting for a larger cup size, it's because there's a greater difference, like 3, 4, 5, even more between the high bust and the full bust. So let's look at how to measure those. These are pretty easy to do on yourself. For the high bust measurement, you're going to want to get the measuring tape like up as high as you can get it across your back and under your arms, and then you're going to measure above your bust. So it's actually up here that you're measuring. Okay, and this is not going to be a level measurement. You can see that it's going to be higher in the front than it is in the back, even if you've got it up as high as it'll go under your arms. But so that's where the high bust is. Now, for the regular bust, you're going to walk the tape down a little bit, and you want to be measuring around the fullest part of your body. That measurement should be taken with a regular bra on. Now, if you normally wear a bra that has padding in it, you're going to want to measure with that bra on it. If you vary between a padded bra or a bra with no padding, you're probably going to want to go with the no padded one because a padded one will always just kind of scooch everything up when you wear that with an outfit instead. So whichever bra you think you would probably end up wearing with whatever you're making, that's the one you want to wear when you're taking the bust measurement. So you do want this to be a level measurement. It should be even. Check in a mirror, which I can't do right now because I'm filming, but you would want to check and make sure that it is level across the back and across the front, and that you're going around that fullest portion of your bust. This might be easier to see on the dress form. So on her, I would want to make sure that it's level and that I'm going right across the fullest part of her bust here. Now, a side note to bust measurements. If you are planning to draft any bodices for yourself, you're also going to want to be able to divide this measurement into a front chest and a back chest measurement. So the easiest way to do that is to make sure that your 0 point on your measuring tape is right on the side seam. It helps if you're wearing a t-shirt like I am, something closely fitted to your body and not very bulky, because then you can use the side seam on your t-shirt to line up the 0 there. So you want to see how much, sorry, I've got that backwards. You actually want it lined up at the 0 point and then coming around the front of your body, because that way then you can feel around on the other side seam and you can see on her 34-inch bust on this mannequin, 17.5 of that is in the front and only 16.5 of it is in the back. So she's got a ½ inch different in front than in back. And again, this is like a B-cup mannequin, so there's not a lot of difference between front and back. I know on myself, there's quite a bit of difference between my front bust and the back bust measurements. So again, you're just going to line those up on the side seams and go around the fullest portion to the other side seam. Then subtract that number from your full bust and you'll know how much is your front and how much is your back bust. Alright, let's talk about waist measurements. Now, the waist is the most commonly mismeasured part of the body. In all my years of teaching high school kids how to do costume design, teaching women how to sew for themselves, people are measuring their waist in the wrong place. And the reason this happens is because people think that where their skirt or their pants fit, which mine's right here, that that's their waist, and that's not the case. We wear most of our clothing below our waist at this point in time. If you ever look at styles from, you know, the 50s or the 60s and the pants had a much higher rise, those are actually sitting at the waist. And we think they look funny now, but that is where people wore them. So this is where the string comes in handy. Because to measure your waist, you actually want to find where do you bend at the side. And that'll help you even if you're kind of, I'm fairly straight-waisted. I don't have a whole lot of curve there. It's not like the mannequin where I can easily see where the curve is and find the smallest part of her body. So if you tie a string around your waist, it will kind of naturally go to that smallest portion. It'll roll up and down. And then if you bend to the side, that'll definitely help get it into the right place. And that just serves as a visual reference for you of where you want to measure. It helps with some length measurements that we take. And you want it snug enough to stay in place, but you don't want it so tight, like you don't want to be pulling in. When you measure your waist, and I'm doing it at the level of the string there, when you measure your waist, you want this measuring tape similar to the string. Like you want it snug, but you don't want to be yanking it as tight as it'll go unless that's how you want to wear the garment that you're going to make. And I personally don't want to have to go around sucking in the whole time or having an uncomfortable pinching at my waist making rolls. So you just keep it snug right there and you measure. Now this is one where you might, and it might make a difference to not have a shirt on when you're measuring it. With the bust, there's a little more play a lot of times, but particularly if you're going to make something really fitted, you may want to measure your actual waist without clothing over it. So I've got the waist there, and it's mine's right at the bottom of my rib cage. You can see it's actually higher than the mannequin's. I'm a little high-waisted, and we'll get to why that's important later. But it is going to be somewhere between the bottom of your rib cage and your belly button, and it will almost definitely be above where you are wearing your pants or your skirt. The other commonly mismeasured part of the body is the hips, and I was guilty of this for years too. When we measure hips, we think hip bones, but actually the hip measurement for a pattern is going to be the fullest part of the body. So it's actually below your hip bones. And it's going to be incorporating your rear. So to do a hip measurement, and again, you probably want to do this without wearing clothing on it, but I'm not going to go put myself on the internet in my underwear. But you do want to measure around the fullest part of your body. You want the actual measurement, not wearing like shapewear or something, unless you're planning to wear the shapewear under whatever you're making. And get around that fullest part and make sure that the tape is level. So you look at it from the side. That's your hip measurement. All right, let's take some length measurements. These are going to be important if you're much shorter or taller than the average size that patterns are drafted for. Now, just like the average that patterns are drafted for in cup size is a B cup, the average height is going to be between 5'4" and 5'6" usually that patterns are drafted for. So if you're shorter than that or taller than that, you're going to want to make sure to have these length measurements and adjust accordingly. The first length measurement you want is the back, neck to waist. So to do that, you're just going to measure from the back of the neck down to the waistline. That's easy to see on the mannequin. On a person, where you're looking is the large bone at the base of the neck, and you want to go from there to, this is where it's handy to have that string tied around your waist. So this allows you to measure yourself. You can just put the top on your neck bone, put the bottom on your waist string, and then I can see that I'm about 2 inches shorter in the torso than my dress form here. So I wouldn't want to use her for draping a pattern for myself without knowing that. The other important one lengthwise, especially for skirts, is going to be the waist to floor length. Now, if you're making pants, you can usually cheat and go find a pair of your pants that fit you and measure the inseam, and that's going to help you. But if you are doing a skirt that doesn't have an inseam, it gets trickier. So you're going to want to know your waist to floor measurement. To do that, you will get the measuring tape and step on it with your toe. You do want to do these barefoot. You don't want to be doing this with shoes on, unless you're going to be wearing shoes with that outfit. Say you're making a formal occasion dress and you're going to be wearing heels, you might actually want to put heels the same height on and then measure. But you'll measure from there to the string up at your waist, and that gives you where the floor is. If you cut something to floor length, by the time you take out the waist seam allowance and the hem, it will be floating just above the floor. So that's a good rule of thumb. If you're going to be drafting a bodice for yourself, there are a few more measurements that you're going to want that wouldn't necessarily be needed for an average pattern. However, if you often have fit issues with average patterns and you've taken those measurements and they line up with the pattern, here are some other things that you might want to check. So the first thing for drafting and for advanced pattern work that we might look at is the arm side depth. And this is where this ruler comes in. For the arm side depth, you're going to want to push the ruler or the straight edge as far as you can up under your arm. And then this measurement is going to go from the point of the shoulder to the top of that ruler. Again, you would want to check in a mirror to make sure that the ruler is level and not like sitting diagonally under your arm. But you want it level, and then that is going to give you the measurement for your arm side depth. As you can see, mine is very shallow, and that actually is something I often have to adjust, or I will get gaping around particularly sleeveless tops up here where the arm side is just generally drafted too low for me. So arm side depth. Another thing that you will need if you're going to be drafting for yourself, possibly if you have problems with sleeve fit, you're going to want to know your biceps measurement. So that is going to be just right up pretty close to where your arm meets your body, and you're going to put the tape around there and you're going to measure that. So there's your biceps width. Arm length. This is where the Scotch tape is going to come in. So you're going to need 2 pieces of transparent tape to measure this, and that's because arm length is measured around a bent arm. So you actually want to tape the 0 point at your wrist, and then you want to throw the measuring tape over your neck to help hold it. You want to go and tape the other part to your elbow. And then that allows you to come up to your shoulder and the point of your shoulder, and there's your sleeve length. You want to measure around a bent arm, not around a straight arm, because, and you can see the tape goes a little bit slack when I straighten my arm. you want it to be a bent arm with your hand on your hip because you don't want the sleeve pulling way up and leaving you with all kinds of exposed wrist when you bend your arm, as you do many times during a normal day. So that's how you would do your arm length. And then finally, to determine your wrist, this is going to be the bottom of the sleeve. That one's fairly easy. You're just going to go and measure right around your wrist, like that. One other measurement, if you're drafting for yourself, that you will need, which you almost will never need in modifying patterns for yourself, but for drafting, you're going to need to know your neck size. So this is where you're going to measure right around the base of your neck, as low as you can get the tape measure to go down your neck, and it's going to be right above your collarbones. When you draft a bodice, you draft it to come up to here, because then any neckline changes and things happen after that. The sloper that you would draft is going to be, you want it to cover the body to its points. It would go to like your shoulder point, up here to your neck point, and to your waist. That's the idea. So you do measure your neck like that. Some drafting books may ask you for your neck width, and in order to get that, you're going to use your string again, and you put it on your neck. You can use a necklace for this as well. You're going to put it on your neck, and you are going to measure the distance in between these strings. Now, you want to again use a mirror for this to make sure that the strings are hanging directly vertical and that you're not kind of doing that when you measure between them, particularly because your bust may kind of get in the way. But you measure neck width that way, and that'll give you a flat measurement about how much of your neck is in the front and about how much is in the back. Okay, so those are most of the measurements you would need to draft a bodice for yourself, and also to do pattern alterations for yourself to make sure that you're getting a fit that's perfect.